Good morning, Dr. Hervey. I'm here with my Chief of Police, Chief Lawrence Corrigan, and this is our recording for talking about preparedness for our town and what we need to do if there's a disaster. So I want to thank Chief Corrigan for agreeing to do this interview with me, and he's a busy man, so I value his time. So Chief, I'm going to have you talk a little bit about your credentials.
Good morning, Doctor. My name's Larry Corrigan. I'm the Chief of Police here in Frankfort, Delaware. I'm currently in my 38th year of law enforcement in Delaware and Maryland. My primary career was with the Delaware State Police, from which I retired in 2009. Along the way, I completed a bachelor's degree, and then as a trooper, went back to school to Wilmington University and picked up 2 master's degrees from there. From my training from 1984 on, which is a constant dynamic and changing, one of the things that we have focused on, amongst others, is emergency planning for obvious reasons. When your student, Ms. Pitts, reached out to me, I gave her an enthusiastic yes to participate in this. I understand she's getting a PhD, and I applaud her and tip my hat to her, particularly as busy as she is professionally and with family matters. She has submitted several questions to me, which I've taken the time to answer, and we're going to elaborate on that during this interview. It's currently the 22nd of January, 2022, and it's about 10:13 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I appreciate that introduction, Chief. But before we start, can you tell me a little bit about Dr. Hervey, a little bit of demographics of our town?
Yes. Our town has a little over 1,000 people in it. We're a very small police department. That'll come into play in a minute. We do have, I'm the only full-time officer here. We're only a 2-year-old agency. It had been shut down prior to my coming here. Through some time, we do have 3 part-time officers here who generally work about 18 to 20 hours a week. Despite our size, we do have to have emergency planning measures in place. Not only is it a good idea, it's the law. And not only nationally, but state level as well. So that's going to be, I think, the focus of our conversation this morning.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Keep calling me Dr. Chief Corrigan. So we'll go ahead and get right to the questions. The first question or statement is: discuss your duties and responsibilities in preparing the community for a community disaster.
Well, the police role, particularly the chief of police's role, primary is public safety. That is a rather broad-based statement. I recognize that, but that includes safety in all situations. And safety planning is of paramount importance. Number one, most of policing is reactive. What has changed in my career is there's been more of a focus on a risk management and pre-planning, if you will, for incidents, and that's what has, I think, garnered our success here, not only locally but nationally as well. Some of the issues that we have to discuss are collateral needs of a community during a emergency situation. And by that I mean, how can you accomplish your mission? Identification of your mission, which is public safety, is of paramount importance. Number one, after our duty to act, we have a duty to inform the public of the ongoings. That can be either social media, public service announcements, radio and print media. We also have extensive relationships with our faith-based community here that help us get messages out about the trauma or the incident that has occurred. And that includes not only having members of faith-based groups present, but in an emergency, we can actually use their facilities. What I did when I got here is I started a chaplaincy program, and it was rather unique in America, and that is that I did not pick one religion. Rather, I picked actually 5. We have 5 churches in town. Identified those members of the clergy that participated, and they all did, to help in these situations, and that's been of great importance. Another group that we interact with on a professional level is trauma counselors, social service agencies. There's a myriad of agencies that we interact with during an emergency. They can be power companies, fire companies, a lot of faith-based groups. In fact, we have one coming here shortly to deliver food to the needy in the community. They'll be out on foot in about a half hour, actually. They are willing to help. We also have partnered with fire companies, as I stated, power companies. Department of Transportation is critical to block off roads if the event it so dictates. Our school districts have been extremely helpful to us in places of shelter, emergency medical services, the National Guard if needed, and our surrounding law enforcement agencies. So it's, for the sake of this interview, and in the interest of Ms. Pitt's time and your time, Doctor, it's a collaborative effort that takes a great deal of communication and work to keep these teams, if you will, up and running.
You know, Chief Corrigan, what I hear you saying, and it's really powerful what you did, you included the community and the strengths of the community. You said something about getting the faith, the churches involved, because the churches are very pivotal, a pillar of the community, and a lot of the people, they live here, they trust their clergy. Mm-hmm. The churches, because we're a small town, you have to use buildings that are available to you, mm-hmm. And so by you kind of collaborating with the faith base is really important to a small community like this, for helping the leadership to be prepared for disasters and knowing what to do. You also talked about trauma counseling. I am a licensed professional mental health counselor.
Very critical role.
Yes, and I am trauma focused certified, and so I know the importance of, after trauma, you know, working with individuals who may experience being in traumatic situations, maybe just not, maybe vicarious trauma, even police force or rescue teams, sometimes just that vicarious trauma, and being exposed to a lot of trauma. So I know just how important it is to work with that personnel. It's very, very important. Oh, I really appreciate that. You talked a little bit about some of the contingency that we hear. Can you talk a little bit more about how you would involve the fire department in the event of an emergency in our town?
The fire department in any town is critical, and thankfully we have these volunteers that want to step up and say, hey, what do you need? Sometimes we need their vehicles. Sometimes we need their buildings. They have emergency medical folks on staff that are ready to go. You know, in the event of an incident, we can use one of their buildings. We can use their trucks. We have limited resources in this town, but in Delaware anyway, our fire companies are very well funded by the state and federal government. And these folks, in fact, the fire chief here is a town councilman. So we've got a wonderful, intimate working relationship with that, and there's never been a time where I asked for assistance that it wasn't quickly rendered to me.
Okay. In a minute, I'm gonna ask you to discuss a little bit about the aspects of your job, but I wanna kind of segue a little bit. In our town, can you think of any recent or disaster that we had, and if not, maybe in our town, in Sussex County in itself, where
Okay.
you may have had to participate?
Well, the National Incident Management System is pretty much a blueprint for any incident. And those incidents that we've had here could be, we've had tornadic issues, we've had major winter storms here, we've had flooding here. All of these incidents require a plan, and that National Management System plan can plug that operation into anything that we face. That could be, quite frankly, we've had a homicide in this town, which planning went into place to not only investigate it, but make the community feel safer. Things were done that day and continue to be done to that end. Any number of traumatic incidents we could have here, whether it's a family that's lost their home due to a fire and are displaced, or we've had incidents where loved ones have perished in home fires. The incident management planning system all swings into action for those events.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. So next we're gonna ask you, can you discuss the aspects of your job?
Okay. Right now, the policing in America, excuse me.
10-1.
It is under a great deal of scrutiny, but be that as it may, our job still has to be done. And part of our, as a chief of police, is it's incumbent upon he or she to have an open communication style with surrounding agencies, some of them social service agencies, as to what they can provide. I have to be a liaison. We have a dichotomy in our populace here of a great deal of Spanish-speaking folks. I have local Hispanic operations on standby should the need surface for bilingual counseling, things of that nature that we have to interact with. So with that being said, the job, primary job, is being a good communicator and keeping an open mind to different ways of doing things. Everyone brings something different to the table, and it's incumbent upon the chief of police or any leader to listen and give those people a voice, at not only a voice, but a seat at the table.
Yes, Chief, like you said, communication is essential to planning and also incorporating and including everyone. We do have a large Hispanic community here, and it's important to include everyone.
Yes.
You know, to help them understand.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and move on. Is there anything that you've learned from previous community disasters that was not in place or provided that you could provide that would be beneficial now?
Well, I think life is an ongoing project. That's why in my 40s I went back and got master's degrees. That's why I applaud you for getting a PhD at this point, continuing your education. What we have after every incident is an after incident review, and you know, your ego's got to be checked at the door, you know, and what could we do better? What did we do well? Was there an incident that we could have provided better trauma care, that we could have provided better care for a really big deal to a lot of people, and I get it as a pet owner, is the safety of their pets after an incident. I get it. That's why, we have the SPCA on a quick call should the need arise, and there's various groups that will come and assist with to that end. So, one of the things that I've learned through my career is, and this is kind of a play on words, so bear with me. I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. So with that being said, to me, life's an ongoing improvement project.
Okay, Chief, is there anything else in closing that you would like to add?
Well, I support what you're doing. Trauma counseling, this job, the police and fire and EMS for that part have improved greatly in the care of their own. Years ago, back in the early 90s, I went through a very traumatic incident on a Saturday night and was back to work on Sunday. And that's just the way it was back then. That doesn't mean it's right. So you're, at the outset, I believe you made a comment towards first responder care as well.
Yes.
That's extremely critical. The Delaware State Police here in Delaware is certainly leading that mission here. Because we've got people in emergency fields that are seeing, sometimes on a daily basis, horrific things, and that's got to be addressed. So thank you for that. But with that being said, I think we're well where we need to be. It's a constant tweaking, in my opinion, and a constant level of improvement. And sometimes ego's got to be checked at the door. You're going to take some hits verbally. You got to be able to, if you ask someone's opinion on something, you got to be able to recognize that it may not be what you want to hear. You've got to respond in kind to that. So I think that the doctorate program that you're attaining is to be commended, and quite frankly, I hope the doctor appreciates what we're doing here. Yeah. So thank you for coming in, and thank you for including us in this. Big fan of higher education. Big fan, obviously. With that being said, I'm going to close unless there's something else.
That's it. Chief, I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.